reason you don't fit in anywhere has nothing to do with you being wrong. Every room you walk into feels wrong. Every conversation feels shallow. Every relationship ends with, "You're too intense." And you've spent years thinking, "What's broken in me?" Nothing. Carl Jung discovered that some people's brains literally work differently. They can't stay asleep in a world running on autopilot. It's called individuation. And in this video, you'll finally understand exactly why you feel like an alien, why that's not a flaw, and how to stop fighting who you actually are. There was a woman, let's call her Sarah, who spent 30 years feeling like she was watching life through a window. When she was 7 years old, other kids were playing tag at recess. Sarah was sitting under a tree, noticing how the sunlight moved through the leaves, how the shadows changed shape, how the wind made patterns in the grass. She wasn't trying to be different. She wasn't trying to be special. She just was. Her brain worked differently. She saw things other kids didn't see. She felt things other kids didn't feel. The other children didn't invite her to play. They didn't reject her cruelly. There was no bullying, no meanness. They just didn't see her. She was invisible in a way that hurt more than being disliked. Because at least being disliked means you exist to someone. She'd go home and her mother would ask, "Did you make any friends today?" And Sarah would lie. "Yeah, lots." Because how do you explain to your mother that you feel like you're from a different planet? How do you say, "The other kids are speaking a language I don't understand, and I don't know how to learn it"? By high school, she learned to fake it. She studied other people like an anthropologist studying a foreign culture. She watched how they laughed, not too loud, not too quiet, always at the right moment. She memorized their gestures, their phrases, their interests. She learned to talk about TV shows she didn't watch, music she didn't like, drama she didn't care about. And it worked, sort of. She had friends, she went to parties. She had a boyfriend for a while. From the outside, she looked normal, successful even, but every single night she came home exhausted, completely drained. Like she'd been performing in a play for 8 hours straight, holding her face in the right expression, saying her lines perfectly, never breaking character. And the moment she closed her bedroom door, the mask came off and she'd collapse. In her 20s, the loneliness got worse. It got sharper, more specific, harder to ignore. She'd be at a bar with friends, people laughing, music playing, everyone having a good time, and she'd look around and think, "I could disappear right now and no one would notice." Not because they were bad people. They weren't. They were perfectly nice. But they didn't know her. How could they? She'd never shown them who she actually was. Relationships ended because partners said she was too intense. One guy told her, "You think too much. You feel too much. Why can't you just be happy?" Another one said, "I feel like I'm never enough for you, like you're always looking for something more." And she started to believe them, started to think, maybe they're right, maybe I am too much, maybe I need to want less, feel less, be less. Then one night, alone in her apartment at 32 years old, after another failed relationship, another job that felt meaningless, another week of pretending to be someone she wasn't, she broke down. She sat on her kitchen floor and said out loud to no one, "I thought something was wrong with me." Not, "I think." Past tense. I thought. Because by that point she'd spent 3 decades trying to fix herself, trying to be lighter, simpler, easier, trying to care about the things normal people cared about, trying to be satisfied with the life normal people wanted. And she was exhausted, completely, utterly exhausted. Here's what Sarah didn't know that night, sitting on her kitchen floor. She wasn't broken. She was waking up in a world that was still asleep, and everything she'd been taught was wrong with her. Her depth, her intensity, her inability to be satisfied with shallow things. Those weren't flaws. Those were the exact qualities that meant she was capable of something most people never even attempt. She was capable of becoming real. Carl Jung understood something that most psychology ignores. Human beings are not meant to be identical copies of each other. We're not supposed to all want the same things, think the same thoughts, live the same lives. We're meant to individuate. Let me break this down fast, because this concept will change how you see your entire life. Jung said there are two operating systems running simultaneously. The first is what he called the collective unconscious. Think of it like the default program that runs in the background of humanity. It's filled with patterns, roles, expectations, unspoken rules. It's why everyone knows how to small talk without being taught. How are you? Good? You? Nobody teaches you that script. You absorb it. It's why people understand social hierarchies, why certain behaviors feel normal and others feel weird, even though no one ever explained the difference. The collective unconscious is not evil. It's actually necessary. It's how societies function, how people cooperate, how civilization doesn't collapse. It's the glue. But then there's the second operating system, your individual unconscious, your unique psychological fingerprint, the parts of you that don't match the template, the thoughts that don't fit the script, the questions no one else is asking. Most people never leave the collective unconscious. They're born into the template, they live it, they die in it. And they're perfectly happy there. That's not an insult, it's just a fact. The default program works for them. But some people like you, start to wake up. Let me show you what this looks like in real time. You're at a family dinner. Everyone's talking about normal things, jobs, weather, plans for the weekend, safe topics, comfortable topics. Then your uncle says something casually racist. Just drops it into conversation like it's nothing. Everyone hears it, but everyone laughs nervously and moves on. Except you. You can't move on. You sit there thinking, did anyone else catch that? Is everyone just pretending that didn't happen? Are we all going to act like that was okay? But everyone does. They've already moved to the next topic. They're laughing about something else. The moment has passed, and you realize you can't unsee what you just saw. You can't unhear what you just heard. Everyone else is still running the collective program. Keep things comfortable, don't make waves, maintain harmony. But your brain rejected the program. That's individuation starting. That's the moment your individual operating system says, I'm not running that script anymore. And suddenly, you're the problem, not your uncle who said the racist thing. You. Because you're the one who can't let it go. You're the one making it awkward. You're the one who's too sensitive or too serious. This is what Jung called individuation. It's the process of becoming who you actually are instead of who you were programmed to be. It's your psyche differentiating from the collective. It's writing your own code instead of running the default program. Most people never do this. They live their entire lives in the collective unconscious, following the script, playing the role, never questioning whether any of it is real. But you can't. Something in you won't let you, and here's where it gets painful. Here's where everything you've experienced starts to make sense. The moment you start individuating, the moment you start waking up to who you actually are, you stop belonging. Not because you're defective, but because you're separating from the collective operating system. You're becoming different, and to everyone still running the default program, you don't make sense. You look like an error in the code. That feeling of not belonging, that feeling of being an alien, that's not evidence of a flaw. That's evidence you're doing something most people will never do. You're becoming real in a world full of people who are perfectly comfortable being replicas. And this is why nothing you've tried has worked. You've tried to be more social, more easygoing, more normal. You've forced yourself to care about things that bore you. You've practiced fitting in. But the fundamental problem isn't that you're bad at fitting in. The problem is that you're not supposed to fit in. Your psyche is actively rejecting the collective program. So let me show you exactly how this plays out across your entire life. Let me show you why each stage of not belonging isn't evidence of your brokenness. It's evidence of your evolution. You're 8 years old. It's lunchtime at school. There's a table where the popular kids sit. You know the one. They're loud, they're laughing, they're trading Pokemon cards or football stickers or whatever the currency of childhood is that year. You want to sit there. Not because you actually care about Pokemon cards. You couldn't care less. But because sitting at that table means something. It means you belong. It means you're normal. It means you're okay. So you sit down with your lunch tray, and immediately, you feel it. The slight pause in conversation, the way they glance at each other. Not mean, not hostile, just confused. Like you're a puzzle piece from the wrong box. You try to join in. They're talking about a TV show, some cartoon everyone watches. You haven't seen it because honestly, you tried to watch it once and it bored you to tears. But you can't say that, so you fake it. Yeah, I love that show, you say. What's your favorite episode? Someone asks. And you freeze. You have no idea. So you say something vague. Oh, you know, the one where you trail off, hoping someone will jump in and save you. They do, but not the way you hoped. One of them says, "You don't actually watch it, do you?" And everyone goes quiet. They're all looking at you now, and you have a choice. Admit you lied, or double down. You laugh it off. No, I do, I just forgot. And you change the subject as fast as you can, but the damage is done. You've been marked. Not as bad, not as wrong, just as different. And different in childhood is the same as wrong. The rest of lunch, you sit there in silence. They go back to their conversation, but you're not part of it anymore. You're there physically, but you're invisible. And you make a decision that will shape the next decade of your life. I need to get better at pretending. That night, you lie in bed and think, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just like the things they like? Why can't I just fit in? Nothing was wrong with you. You were just asking different questions than they were. While they were asking, who's the coolest kid? What's the most popular show? How do I fit in? You were asking, why do we need to be cool? What makes something popular? Why does everyone care about the same things? While they were playing the game, you were noticing the game was a game. And once you see it, once you see that all of this is constructed, arbitrary, made up, you can't unsee it. Jung would say your psyche was already rejecting the collective program. Even at 8 years old, some part of you knew, this game has rules I didn't agree to. These values aren't my values. This life isn't my life. And that's terrifying as a child, because children need to belong. It's not just about social comfort, it's about survival. For thousands of years, being cast out of the tribe meant death. So your nervous system is wired to avoid it at all costs. But your psyche is saying, this tribe isn't your tribe, and you don't know what to do with that information. So you internalize it as, I'm broken, I need to fix myself. You spend the rest of childhood trying. You watch the popular kids like a scientist. You memorize their mannerisms, their jokes, their interests. You learn to perform. And sometimes it works well enough that you almost forget you're performing. But you never fully fit. There's always a gap, always a translation delay, always a feeling that you're pretending and everyone else is just being. That's not a childhood flaw. That's the beginning of consciousness. That's your psyche refusing to be domesticated. And it's the most important thing that will ever happen to you, even though it feels like a curse. Fast forward to high school. You're 15, maybe 16. The stakes are so much higher now. Belonging isn't just about lunch tables, it's about your entire social survival. It's about whether you exist or not. You watch how it works. There are hierarchies, clear and rigid. There are trends that change every month. There are things you're supposed to care about. Friday night football games, parties, who's dating who said what about who. The social landscape is a minefield, and everyone else seems to have a map you were never given. You try. God, you try so hard. You go to the parties. You stand in someone's basement with a drink you don't want, music too loud to think, surrounded by people yelling over each other about nothing. And everyone else seems to be having the time of their lives. They're dancing, they're laughing, they're connecting in a way that looks effortless. You're standing there thinking, is this it? Is this what everyone wants? Is this what I'm supposed to want? And you feel insane. Because clearly, everyone else is having fun. Clearly, this is valuable to them. Clearly, you're the problem. So you smile. You nod along. You pretend the noise isn't overwhelming you. You pretend the conversations aren't boring you. You pretend the whole thing isn't making you feel more alone than if you'd stayed home. Someone comes up to you. Maybe a friend. Maybe just someone drunk enough to be honest, and they say, "You look miserable." And you panic. "No, I'm having fun." Too enthusiastic. Too desperate. They laugh. You know you don't have to come to these if you don't want to, right? And you freeze. Because if you don't come to these, where do you belong? If you're not at the parties, not at the games, not part of the social world everyone else inhabits, then what are you? Where do you go? The truth is, you want to belong. You want to have fun. You want to feel connected, but not like this. Not in a basement with 50 people and no real conversation. Not pretending to enjoy things that drain you. You want depth. You want one person you can talk to about real things. You want to ask questions like, what do you actually want out of life? What are you afraid of? What do you think happens when we die? But you can't ask those questions at a party. You can't ask them at school, because the moment you try, people look at you like you just spoke a foreign language. They laugh nervously. They change the subject. They say, "Whoa, too deep, bro." And you learn, my real thoughts are not welcome here. My real self is not welcome here. So you bury it. You bury the questions. You bury the intensity. You bury everything that makes you you. And you become a ghost. Present, but not there. Smiling, but not happy. Surrounded, but alone. Here's what actually happens during adolescence for people who are individuating. You start to realize the collective rituals don't feed you. They drain you. Parties aren't recharging. They're performances. Small talk isn't connecting. It's maintaining a script. Being popular isn't fulfilling. It's exhausting. But you're not mature enough yet to understand that wanting something different doesn't make you defective. So you internalize it as, "I'm broken." You're not broken. You're just hungry for something real, and you're surrounded by people who are satisfied with symbols. Now you're an adult. You've made it through school. You've got a job, maybe a career. And you think, finally. Adults will be different. Adults will have substance, depth, meaning. Then you sit in your first team meeting. Someone's presenting a PowerPoint about quarterly targets. There are graphs, there are buzzwords, synergy, leverage, circle back, move the needle. Everyone's nodding seriously, taking notes, acting like this matters on a cosmic level. And you notice something. Their eyes. They're dead. Not metaphorically, literally dead behind the eyes. They're physically present but completely absent, like they've left their bodies and something else is operating them, and you're sitting there thinking, can they not see it? Can they not feel that they're performing being alive instead of actually being alive? We're going to die one day, all of us in this room. We have maybe 30,000 days on this planet if we're incredibly lucky. We're biological organisms on a rock floating through infinite space, and we're spending this day, this irreplaceable, never-coming-back day, pretending to care about a graph. You don't say that, obviously. You nod. You take your notes. You say things like, "Great point," and "I'll follow up on that." You play the game because you need the paycheck and you're an adult now, so you understand compromise. But then it's lunch. You're in the break room with your co-workers, and you think, okay, maybe now. Maybe this is where people are real. They're talking about the weather, about their commute, about a TV show everyone watches, about who's getting laid off, who's getting promoted, who said what in what meeting. Surface level things, safe things, things that don't require anyone to be vulnerable or honest or real. And you try to go deeper. Do you ever think about what we're actually doing here? You ask. Like the bigger picture, the point of it all. The table goes quiet. Someone laughs nervously, that laugh that means you just made this awkward. Someone else checks their phone. A third person says, "Man, it's too early for existential crises," and everyone laughs and the tension breaks and the conversation moves on. Later, someone pulls you aside. Someone who likes you, who means well. "Hey," they say, "you're great." Really smart, really talented, but maybe keep it lighter. People come to work to relax, you know. They don't want to think about heavy stuff. And there it is. That message you've been getting your entire life, just in a new package. You're too much, too intense, too deep, too different. What they're really saying, what they can't say because they don't have the language for it, is, you're making us look at things we've collectively agreed not to look at. You're breaking the trance. You're reminding us that we're all going to die and that most of what we do is meaningless, and that makes us uncomfortable. So please stop. This is the workplace alienation that almost every individuating person experiences. You're surrounded by people 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. But you're fundamentally alone, because you're awake in a room full of people who've agreed to stay asleep, who've agreed that quarterly targets matter more than mortality, who've agreed that small talk is enough. And the worst part? You start to wonder if maybe they're right. Maybe you should just relax. Maybe you should just accept things as they are. Maybe wanting more, wanting meaning, wanting depth. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe you're the problem. Then there are relationships. Romantic relationships. This is where not belonging hurts the most. Because you can tolerate being alone at work. You can tolerate shallow friendships. But intimate relationships, those are supposed to be different. Those are supposed to be where you finally get to be real. You meet someone. There's chemistry. There's attraction. You start dating. And for a while, for a beautiful, intoxicating while, it's good. They think your depth is interesting. They say things like, "I've never met anyone like you. You're so different. You actually think about things." They ask you questions. They want to know how your mind works. They're fascinated by the parts of you that everyone else has found exhausting. You feel seen. Finally, someone who gets it. Someone who doesn't need you to translate. Someone who can meet you where you are. You open up. You show them the real you, the intensity, the questions, the need for meaning. And they don't run. They lean in. They say, "More. Show me more." And you think, this is it. This is the person. This is what I've been waiting for. For the first time in your life, you're not pretending. You're not performing. You're not translating. You're just you, and someone loves you for it. But then, 6 months in, something shifts. They start saying things like, "You overthink everything," or "Why can't you just be happy? Why do you always have to analyze everything?" Or "Can't we just enjoy the movie without you deconstructing the themes?" The things they loved about you, your depth, your intensity, your need for meaning, suddenly become problems. Because here's what you didn't realize. They didn't fall in love with who you are. They fell in love with the idea of someone who's deep, but actually being in a relationship with someone who's individuating, that's hard. It requires them to look at their own life, their own choices, their own avoidance of real questions, and most people don't want to do that. It's uncomfortable. It's easier to watch TV. It's easier to keep things light. It's easier to live on the surface, so they try to domesticate you. "Can't we just have a normal relationship?" they ask. And what they mean is, can't you just be less? Can't you just want less, feel less, question less? And you try. You really do. You bite your tongue when you want to ask deep questions. You watch TV without analyzing it. You go to parties and pretend to have fun. You perform normalcy because you don't want to lose them, but eventually you can't keep it up. Eventually you need real conversation, real intimacy, real presence. You need to talk about things that matter. You need someone who doesn't just tolerate your depth but matches it. And they look at you like you're asking for something impossible, like you're being unreasonable, like you're too much. The relationship ends, and they always say some version of this. "You're too intense. I can't keep up. I feel like I'm never enough for you." And you think, maybe I am too much. Maybe I need to be less. Maybe I need to want less from people. Here's the truth. You don't need to be less. You need to find people who can meet you where you are. But those people are rare. Because most people are still running the collective program, and you're not. This is the loneliest realization, because at least when you didn't belong at work or at parties, you could tell yourself, but I'll find it in love. I'll find someone who gets me. And then you find someone. And for a moment, they do get you, and then they don't. And you realize, maybe there's no one. Maybe I'm just fundamentally incompatible with connection. But that's not true either. You're just looking in the wrong places. You're trying to find depth in people who are committed to staying shallow. And that's never going to work. So what do you do with all of this? How do you stop feeling like an alien in your own life? How do you transform this pain into something that actually serves you? Jung's answer is not, learn to fit in better. His answer is not, find better social skills. His answer is, complete the individuation process. Become so full of yourself that you stop needing external belonging. Let me show you exactly how. Step 1. Stop apologizing for your depth. First, you have to stop treating your awareness like a disease. You've spent years, maybe decades, trying to be lighter, simpler, easier, trying to care about the things you're supposed to care about, trying to be satisfied with the life you're supposed to want, trying to be normal. Stop. Your depth is not a flaw. Your need for meaning is not a problem. Your inability to be satisfied with surface-level existence is not broken. It's evolution. It's your psyche saying, the collective program is not enough for me. I need more. I need real. When you walk into a room and feel like you don't belong, that's not evidence you're defective. That's evidence you've outgrown the collective script. And that's terrifying, yes. It's isolating, yes. But it's also the beginning of actual freedom. Stop performing. Stop pretending small talk feels good when it drains you. Stop forcing yourself to enjoy parties that exhaust you. Stop shrinking yourself to make other people comfortable. Stop apologizing for needing depth, for asking real questions, for wanting more than what the collective offers. Not because you're better than them. You're not. But because you're different. And different is not wrong. Different is just different. The people who are still in the collective unconscious, they're not bad. They're not less evolved. They're just playing a different game. And that game works for them. But it doesn't work for you. And you need to stop pretending it does. This is the first step. Stop apologizing. Stop shrinking. Stop performing. Just stop. And watch what happens when you do. If this process is resonating with you and you want more Carl Jung insights that actually transform your life, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. This is the work that changes everything. Step 2. Find your real tribe. Here's what Jung understood that most people don't. You don't belong everywhere. You belong somewhere. There are other people who are individuating, people who can't pretend anymore, people who ask real questions, people who need depth, meaning, truth. They exist. I promise you they exist. But here's the thing. They're not where you've been looking. You find them in uncomfortable places. Not bookstores at 2 a.m. That's the fantasy version. The reality is messier. You find them in YouTube comments under videos like this one, saying things that would sound insane to normal people. You find them in therapy waiting rooms. Not the ones there for anxiety management, but the ones asking existential questions their therapist can't answer. You find them in the person at work who everyone thinks is weird, who you've been avoiding because you didn't want to be associated with them, until one day you actually talk and realize they're the only real person in the building. You find them when you stop performing and start speaking your actual thoughts out loud, and someone's face lights up like, "Holy shit, me too." Your tribe isn't found. It's revealed. It reveals itself the moment you stop hiding. And here's what that actually looks like. You're at a dinner party. Everyone's talking about nothing. And you're about to do what you always do. Nod along, laugh at the right moments, play the game. But this time, you don't. This time, you say what you're actually thinking. Can I ask a real question? Does anyone else feel like we're all just going through the motions? The table goes silent. Most people look uncomfortable. But one person across the table, their eyes light up. And after the party, they find you. I've been waiting my entire life for someone to ask that question. That's how you find your tribe. Not by going to the right places, by being the right person, by being honest, by being real, by refusing to perform. Your tribe is smaller. That's the trade-off. You're not going to have 500 Facebook friends. You're not going to be popular. You're not going to fit in everywhere. You're going to have 5 people. Maybe 10 if you're lucky. People who don't need you to translate. People who speak your language. People who don't drain you because they match your depth. And that's not a loss. That's an upgrade. 5 real friendships are worth more than 500 shallow ones. 1 person who actually knows you is worth more than 100 people who know your performance. Step 3. Build an inner belonging. But here's the final piece, and it's the hardest one. It's the one that most people never complete. It's the one that Jung said was the entire point of individuation. You cannot complete this process and still need external validation. The two are incompatible. Individuation means becoming whole unto yourself. It means your sense of self is not dependent on other people's approval, other people's understanding, other people's acceptance. Let me be specific about what that actually means. It means you're at a party where you don't fit in, and instead of spiraling into what's wrong with me, you think, I'm bored. I'm leaving. And you leave. No explanation, no apology, no text the next day saying, sorry, I was weird. It means someone says you're too intense. And instead of trying to be less intense, you think, okay, then this isn't my person. And you feel sad, but you don't feel wrong. It means you walk through your life like you have permission to exist exactly as you are. Not because someone gave you permission, but because you stopped asking for it. This is the hardest psychological work you will ever do, because it means choosing yourself over belonging. And we're wired to choose belonging over everything, even truth. For thousands of years, exile meant death. So your nervous system screams at you, don't do this, you'll die alone. You need them, but you don't. Not the way you think you do. You need a few real connections. You need people who match your depth, but you don't need the collective's approval. You don't need to fit into a world that was never designed for who you're becoming. When you complete this process, when you build that inner belonging, something incredible happens. You stop feeling like you don't belong anywhere, because you belong to yourself. And that's the only belonging that actually matters. You walk through the world differently. You're not scanning for acceptance anymore. You're not performing. You're not translating. You're just there, fully yourself. And some people still won't get you. Most people won't, but it doesn't hurt anymore. Because their misunderstanding of you doesn't define you. You define you. Let me take you back to Sarah. Remember her? The woman who spent 30 years feeling like she was watching life through a window. She finally stopped trying to fit in. She stopped performing lightness. She stopped apologizing for her depth. She stopped waiting for permission to be herself. And here's what happened. She lost some people. People who needed her to stay small. People who were comfortable with the performance. People who didn't want to do their own work. People who needed her to stay asleep so they didn't have to wake up. And that hurt. It hurt like hell, because even though those relationships were shallow, they were familiar. Even though those people didn't really know her, they were there. And losing them felt like losing her last connection to the normal world. But then, something else happened. She found her people. Not hundreds of them. 5. 5 humans on this planet who could meet her where she was, who didn't need her to translate, who didn't make her feel like too much or too little, who could match her depth without making it a competition. 5 people who saw her and said, "Oh, there you are. I've been looking for you." And more importantly than any external belonging, she found herself. She stopped walking into rooms and scanning for acceptance. She started walking into rooms and noticing, do I want to be here? Is this feeding me or draining me? Is this real or is this performance? And when the answer was no, she left, without apology, without explanation, without making it mean something was wrong with her. She built a life that fit her instead of trying to fit a life that was never meant for her. She stopped asking, "Why don't I belong?" and started asking, "Where do I want to belong?" And the loneliness, it didn't disappear. Let's be honest about that. There are still moments where she feels alone, where she wishes she could just be normal, where she sees people who fit in effortlessly and feels a pang of envy. But the loneliness transformed. It stopped feeling like evidence of brokenness. It started feeling like evidence of consciousness. It started feeling like the price of waking up. And she decided, consciously, deliberately, that the price was worth it. Sarah messaged me after her transformation. She said something I'll never forget. "I spent 30 years thinking I was broken. Turns out, I was just early. Early to waking up, early to asking real questions, early to refusing to pretend. Because here's the final truth Jung understood. The price of waking up is not belonging to the sleeping world anymore. But the reward? The reward is belonging to yourself, completely, fully, without apology, without performance, without translation. The reward is freedom. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to become. And when you finally stop trying to belong where you were never meant to be, nothing and nobody will ever make you feel like an alien again. Because you'll know the truth. You're not lost. You're not broken. You're not too much. You're just awake. And that's not a curse. That's liberation. Drop a comment and tell me, which scenario hit hardest for you? The childhood outsider, the adolescent pretending, the workplace alienation, or the "you're too much" relationship? I read every single one, and I want to know which part of this journey you're in right now.